Voters in 5 states are participating in today's primary elections.
These contests are expected to be a significant proving ground for former President Trump as he looks to regain influence over the Republican Party. Primary elections are being held in Arizona, Michigan, Missouri, Kansas, and Washington. In the deeply purple state of Arizona, there are several key races, including the primaries for the House, Senate, and the state's highly contested governor's seat.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now with more on that. Ed, the former Trump White House is divided, you might say, on several key races, including the Arizona gubernatorial primary. How is the former president and the former vice president factoring into the race, and are either of them helping to win over voters?
That's the big question today, David, here as Arizona heads to the polls along with those 4 other states. The gubernatorial race, probably the marquee matchup here because it's the one that Republicans may have a good chance of holding on to in November. You have Kari Lake, a former TV news anchor here in Phoenix, who's backed by the former president, has spent much of the last 18 months morphing into this pro-Trump, the election was stolen, popular Republican figure in this state, versus a woman named Karen Taylor Robson, who's a first-time candidate, backed by the former vice president and this state's sitting governor, Doug Ducey, who believes that Kari Lake would be too extreme a Republican to win a general election in this state where you have to win over independents and at times Democrats in order to win. We've spoken with both candidates just in the last day or so. Take a listen to what Kari Lake and then Karen Taylor Robson have to say for themselves and about each other.
And I think our policies appeal to independents, Democrats, and Republicans.
Well, Arizona has a long track record of voting for the person and not the party. They don't want drama. They want tough, principled executive leadership experience. That's what I bring to the table.
Now, what you're seeing play out here in Arizona is somewhat symbolic of what we're seeing across the country. Take a look at these new CBS News Battleground Tracker numbers out this morning. 57% of Republicans nationwide say they're more likely to vote for a candidate who gets an endorsement from the former president. If that bodes true here in Arizona, that would mean Kari Lake is going to win this primary tonight. However, to Robson's point, if you look more broadly at registered voters overall when it comes time for a general election, our new poll finds Trump endorsements make registered voters overall less likely to vote for that candidate. So that's the argument she's making. I may not have the former president's support. I agree with many of the things he did. Notably, she also will not say whether Joe Biden, explicitly won't say whether Joe Biden won the 2020 election. She has a fancy way of getting around that. But either way, she argues she'd be a better candidate to face the Democrat in November.
I've certainly heard her say that. And Ed, Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs likely to receive the Democratic Party's nomination for governor. So how is she responding to criticism of her party and the president as she looks to win over voters in her state?
Yeah, this is an interesting look at how Democrats are dealing with their party leader. Remember, President Biden right now not popular whatsoever, just about as unpopular as Donald Trump was around this time. And he's becoming a drag on Democratic candidates. Very well could drag down especially congressional candidates across the country. Our poll found that he's deeply unpopular for all sorts of reasons, chiefly the economy. We talked to Katie Hobbs about this and started by talking to her about the president. Take a look.
I'm focused on talking to Arizonans about the issues they're concerned about. I'm not sure, what difference it would make if the president was out here or not. But what I do know is that Arizonans want a leader that is focused on the challenges we face that I mentioned: water, education, reproductive health care, affordability. Those are the things I'm focused on.
In our conversation, she put distance between herself and the White House on border security, arguing the administration needs to be doing more to tackle that issue, not necessarily build a wall, but put more manpower and resources in there. On inflation, saying that the White House hasn't moved fast enough to help address that issue, and notably on reproductive rights, which of course we're watching to see how much that issue plays in primaries right now and then the general election in November. She says there are other more aggressive measures the White House could be taking to protect a woman's reproductive rights. She suggested, as some Democrats have, that the Senate should consider doing away with the filibuster. She noted that others have talked about expanding the size of the Supreme Court, didn't necessarily endorse that, but says those kinds of more aggressive moves need to be considered in order to offer those protections. Again, this race, local, statewide, but emblematic of what we're seeing across the country for Democrats and Republicans.
Ed, I don't mean to catch you off guard here, but when was the last time a Democrat was governor in Arizona?
Glad you asked, because I asked that again this morning. Janet Napolitano won back in 2006. So they've got a hefty climb about as steep as that rock to try to win in November. But they believe if Carrie Lake is the Republican nominee, as extreme and as outspoken in her election denying as she is, that they may have a shot at it. We'll see.
Don't you try and catch Ed O'Keefe off guard, okay?
Let me tell you something. I didn't want to throw him off, but I knew my boy would know.
Exactly.
Ed O'Keefe, good to see you, my friend. Keep smiling. You're not sweating like the heat in Phoenix that I expected to see.
Just wait. Just wait.
Okay. He's got a towel nearby.
Thank you so much. Well, be sure to stay with CBS News for coverage of primaries in 5 states throughout the day. And tonight, we're going to bring you a special roundup of the results anchored by Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett. That's beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern.